I'm a professional wildlife and nature photographer. I've been to 4 continents over the last decade and had a chance to photograph wildlife, the landscape, the night sky, the daytime sky. And I've noticed that more and more, being out in nature, I actually edit the things that we see and the things that we bring back. More and more, I find myself an unwilling and unwitting witness to global warming, climate change, and environmental degradation on a scale that's hard to imagine. This summer, my family and I went swimming looking for whales in the South Pacific in Tonga, and we saw whales. But we also saw dead and dying reefs. These coral reefs can no longer support the life that they once did. And it reminded me that 3 years ago I did the same thing in the Atlantic Ocean. In the Atlantic Ocean, I saw the same thing, dead reef. A month after I saw this, I flew over the Arctic ice sheet in Greenland. The Arctic ice sheet is coming apart. 1,000-year-old blocks of ice melting. It's a pretty pattern, but it's a sign of climate in distress. And still, I'm not here to talk to you about hopelessness. In fact, I'm here to talk to you about hope and the ideas that are bigger than us that give me hope. I'll point out just one more thing when talking about ice and the timeline of our sun. One of my favorite glaciers is Mendenhall Glacier. It's very accessible. It's outside the city of Juneau, Alaska. During the course of Marcus's lifetime, this glacier has retreated about 1,500 feet. This is a photograph of Marcus standing by a lake where the glacier used to be, where it was the first time that I saw it. This photograph's a couple of years old. We're in trouble. There's no doubt about it. This same lake connects the glacier through a stream, and if you walk in through the stream, you can get inside the glacier. I went inside the glacier to take photographs of the beautiful sunlight refracting through 8 feet of ice. It was a fantastic mystical experience being inside a cavern, few people get to go in. That was June of 2011. 3 weeks later, in July of 2011, the warming ice collapsed. 1 billion gallons of 10,000-year-old ice water came rushing out of that same hole that I'd walked through. There's not even a word in English to describe a glacier collapsing like that. It's how rare that phenomenon is. One more sign of our environmental distress. I'm out as an individual. I talk to nature guides, forest rangers, park rangers, native fishermen, boat captains. We all see the same thing. And yet overwhelmingly, there's optimism. And there's optimism because there are a lot of people out there with a lot of crazy ideas trying to solve these problems. I'd like to spend a few minutes just giving you a few samples of some of the ideas that I've heard about from my friends, things simply the network of concerned people are doing. And the thing that strikes me so much about it is that they're not big companies doing these things. They're individual, small groups, isolated researchers, hobbyists, amateurs that are doing fascinating things. I want to talk about 3 areas: reforestation, drinking water, and plastics. This is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. This is essentially a consumer drone with a machine gun attached to it that plants trees. 2 people with 5 of these things can plant 400,000 trees in a day. It's not expensive. It's just brand new. It was invented by a company in England called Biocarbon Engineering, small little company no one's ever heard of. I think it's fantastic. In the same vein, a couple of researchers at Princeton University 20 years ago found this degraded piece of rainforest in Costa Rica and left 12,000 tons of orange peels. Those orange peels broke down the soil and made it possible for lush rainforest to come back in a short period. They took garbage to make a rainforest whole. In the same way, This is an idea that's just so kooky it just might work. These look like solar panels, but they're not. This is from a company called Zero Mass Water that makes drinking water from air. These panels can be used in deserts and places without piping, places with degraded natural sources of water to create free water. They're solar powered. And the great thing about this to me, one of the great things about it, is that they have competition. And so as green as they are with their solar powered free water collectors, their competition actually advertises that theirs is actually carbon negative because it uses poop as a fuel. This is a truly remarkable individual achievement for the environment. This young man, Fion Ferreira, is 18 years old, and in July of this year, he won the International Google Science Fair. He won it for creating a very simple, very inexpensive technology for removing microplastics from ocean water. And he does it using magnets to get microplastics out of water. Now, there's a chemical agent that comes in between, but it's fascinating that it wasn't a big company, it wasn't a government. It was an 18-year-old high school student who wanted to win a $50,000 prize in a science fair, who came up with one of the most remarkable environmental breakthroughs of a generation. These kinds of things give me hope. Beyond hope, though, we have to look at the limitations of the individual. And we have to understand that they need our help. And part of our role in this crisis, part of our opportunity, is actually to support these people. The reason support is necessary is we don't have time for inventions and inventiveness to take their natural course. The good news is, even if you're not inventive, even if you're not a creator, you can play a major part in helping to save our environment. I just want to talk about time just for a second. I'm 53 years old. 45 years ago, I read the comics in the Sunday newspaper, and I was thrilled by a technology that a detective named Dick Tracy had for a two-way wrist communicator. That comic was, at the time, 40 years old. It took 85 years to go from imagination to our Apple Watch. It's fantastic that we have it, but that pace of innovation is simply too slow for our environment. We all know Elon Musk. Many people revere the work that he's doing to try to save our environment with electric cars. He himself says that that's his intention, is to help save the planet. The technology for the electric car, though, is actually almost 200 years old. The primitive electric car was invented in 1828, refined in 1848. This is an 1881 model. It took 125 years from this 1881 model to get to the Teslas we have parked outside. It's simply too slow. Great idea. Crazy idea at the time, but we can't let the pace of our innovations happen on this timeline. I want to close with hope. The great thing about where we are today is that there are so many initiatives, so many ideas that are being put into action. One of the great things about the internet is that you can find them really easily. You can Google a solution for almost any climate problem out there, and there's an inventor or an inventive person, team, that's working on a solution. We don't have to come up with individual solutions, but we do need to provide our support. The path to realized innovation requires financing, customers, public approval, people talking about things and making them normal, making them accepted parts of our world, finding ways to make inventive ideas a part of our everyday. An example of this, very fresh, is that with all the talk about microplastics, in the last 2 weeks, 3 major hotel chains have said, we'll do our part. We'll stop giving away those little bottles of shampoo and conditioner. Marriott alone said they can take 500 million little bottles out of the waste stream, out of the oceans, just by converting to bulk products in rooms. That's providing support for a simple idea. So, for all of you that look around and you see crazy ideas on the internet, stop and think. Can this crazy idea be something that's bigger than us? If it's a good idea and can help save our environment, help protect us from what's coming, I think the answer is yes. And I would ask you just to do your part to provide support to realize those dreams. Thank you.